Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest webcast in Caring.com's Digital Marketing Academy. Our session today is about making the most of the rush of those senior care inquiries that happen each year after the November and December holidays, when families gather and discover increased living and care needs for their elderly loved ones. I'm Denise Graab, a marketing director here at Caring.com, and I'm joined by our Vice President of Sales and Customer Care, Ryan Schilling, who I'll introduce in more depth in just a moment. One second. All right, before we dive into the presentation, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. This is a one-way webcast where only the presenters speak. However, we want to hear from you through your questions. We encourage you to ask questions in the upper right of your screen. You'll see a box where you can enter them. You can enter them anytime throughout the session. We're going to open up to a Q&A toward the end. And one of the most common questions we get with every single session is, are we going to be sharing the slides and recording with you? And the answer is yes. So you can pay close attention. You don't have to take furious notes. We'll be sending you this recording and slides. You can share it with others in your organization and revisit the information we'll be sharing. Now, while this webinar is free of charge, you do have to listen to this brief commercial for Caring.com as your price of admission. We have 3 million visitors using our site Senior Care Resources every month. These are families and older adults who are turning to us for caregiving information, referral, and support. They also come to us for reviews about your businesses. In fact, we are the largest senior care review site with more than 150,000 consumer reviews posted on our site right now, and we add thousands every month. We also have thousands of original articles across all caregiving and elder care topics, and we host online support groups for family caregivers. We own the website seniorhomes.com. Our directory is featured on AARP, and we are part of Bankrate's powerful network of websites dedicated to supporting people in making complex financial decisions. I am so pleased to introduce Ryan Schilling, Caring.com's Vice President of Sales and Customer Care. Ryan will be sharing his insights to help you convert internet leads based on his experiences managing our call center operation. He also builds partnerships with senior living communities and home care agencies, and he leads our sales teams. Prior to joining Caring.com in 2012, he held several sales and marketing leadership positions over the last 15 years, extensive experience growing large sales organization and driving revenue growth, and he's managed 2 call centers in the Northern California area. On a personal note, Ryan grew up in Central Illinois, where he spent a lot of time with his grandparents and saw up close how important and difficult caregiving is as our loved ones age. He's a 2-degree graduate from the University of Miami, and he currently lives in the San Francisco Bay Area with his wife and 2 children. And when he's not coaching his daughter's softball team, he's rooting for the St. Louis Cardinals, and anyone who's visited our office will often see Ryan in his Cardinals gear. I'm also going to be sharing some insights in today's session. So for those of you not yet familiar with me, I've been at Caring for 7 years. I have extensive experience in social media marketing and in reviews in particular. In fact, I was part of the original expert panel who created our review guidelines, and I've been a key player in the program in the years since then, including as the co-creator and manager of the Caring Stars program, which recognizes senior living communities and home care agencies who have a high volume of great reviews and who take the time to respond to negative reviews. As usual, we have a lot to cover. We're going to start with understanding online search for senior care and the handling of internet referrals. Ryan's going to cover speed to lead and the importance of follow-up and some tips on follow-up. We're also going to talk about how you can optimize your business profile to really stand out and search and attract more prospects, and how you can use consumer reviews to boost those inquiries and conversions, and we'll open it up for Q&A. So without further ado, let's get started in understanding online senior care search and converting those internet-sourced prospects. You don't hear this myth anymore, as much anymore, but years ago, we used to get some pushback that middle-aged folks and older adults allegedly were not online and online profiles weren't needed to help a senior care business grow. I remember in my early days at Caring, one person even asked me why Caring.com had bothered to hire me, given that, quote, old people weren't using social media. It's more widely known now that baby boomers and seniors are online in greater numbers than people might think or assume. This slide shows you some of the latest data from the Pew Research Center, which has been surveying users of the internet of all ages for many years, and their reports are on their website free of charge, so you can go after this session, follow up, and see the full report on the demographic for baby boomers and seniors and use of the internet. What I found most interesting in their most recent survey from April 2017 is, as you can see, the majority of boomers and seniors in the high income brackets, so folks who are financially qualified for senior living communities and able to hire home care agencies, are definitely online every day. They're using smartphones and tablets, and they're participating in social networks. And what I have found in the last 7 years is that if you show them how to use the online platforms, they become active users, so much so that in some cases, this generation is taking over platforms that used to be more popular amongst the teens and older young adults. As my 15-year-old daughter recently said to me, Facebook is for old people. Now, Caring.com does an annual survey called the Caregiver Journey. The vast majority of individuals using our site are family caregivers, typically an adult daughter in her 50s caring for her parent or her spouse's parents in their 80s. And that care recipient is typically a loved one living with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. We've had thousands of respondents to our last two surveys, and this is just one simple snapshot of the data we have of those searching online. In the first half of 2018, we're going to be hosting a webinar to take you through a deep dive of the last Caregiver Journey survey. So look for an invite to that webinar soon. We're also going to be presenting this data in more depth at the Aging in America conference in San Francisco in March. So for those of you attending that event, we hope you'll come to the session and say hello. Now, from the Caregiver Journey data and the many referral conversations we have every day, we know that these online searchers mostly don't know their local senior care provider options. That's typically why they go online to find out what's available. And they're inclined to do quite a bit of research before they ever pick up the phone, return your email, or fill out that lead form. To support our marketing here at Caring, we use the data about senior care searchers online to create a marketing persona. We call her Mary, which is one of the most common names for baby boomer women. What would Mary do? Would Mary like that? Would Mary really be jazzed about that? Are some of the questions we ask ourselves in developing areas of our website or creating our online ads. We get to know these website users and our customers really well to support her needs deeply. So what can we extrapolate about Mary? As the adult daughter, she's likely not the sole decision maker, but she's definitely a key leader and an influencer in the process. She needs to be empowered with helpful, compelling information so that she can bring along the others involved, like her siblings, her spouse, and of course, most importantly, the senior. She's often still working, and she's balancing this research project with many other responsibilities. That means she's stressed, she's likely overwhelmed, she doesn't have a lot of spare time, and once she fills out that lead form, she wants you to pay close attention to the details of her search and the circumstances and tailor your follow-up to match her needs. She likes to have information readily available to her online via her smartphone or her computer at work or home. This means your website and your listing on Caring.com both need to answer her most important questions and compel her to submit an online inquiry or to call you back. She relies heavily on reviews. She wants to hear from others just like her. What did they like? What did they dislike about your senior care business? Let's face it, this isn't a restaurant pick. This is a selection of a business that is going to care for her most beloved family members. It's a highly emotional process, And by keeping the details of her situation and her preferences top of mind, by offering empathy and support for her on her terms, you'll have the greatest chance of developing a rewarding relationship with her. Now, every January and even into February, the Google search engine sees a spike in the volume of searches for terms like assisted living and nursing home. After this session, you can visit the free Google Trends tool to see this data yourself, which you may also know from your own inbound inquiry tracking. This timing coincides, of course, with what we talked about at the beginning, Mary's visits with the parents and the in-laws over the holidays in November and December, and the discovery that her elderly loved ones need or may benefit from senior living or an in-home caregiver. She's going to turn to search engines and start seeing what's out there. And for many of the senior care search terms, she's very likely to find sites like caring.com and your listing in our directory specifically. She's also going to find articles on specific topics of concern. And in many of those articles on caring.com, she's going to find links to our directory so she can find your business. She might also visit the Caregiving Center on AARP, which is where our directory is featured. And there are other sites on the web that also feature our directory that will lead her to our site and to your business. As I mentioned during the commercial at the beginning of this webinar, we have award-winning senior care content. We have lots of it that we have optimized for search engines, and that helps establish us as a leading expert in this topic area, or what's known as domain authority. We regularly publish new content, and the reviews add a high volume of fresh content daily too. Another reason that we rank really well in search is because we link to other authoritative sites that are likewise optimized for search engines, and there are numerous reputable sites out there that also link to us. All of this helps Mary to find us on page 1 or near the top of page 1 of those search results when she seeks out information. And when you're partnered with us through our directory, your business too can be seen by Mary. Okay, now at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Ryan, who will share about our referral program and how you can optimize the opportunity of a partnership with us to sign up Mary as a new customer.
Thank you, Denise. I'm really excited to be here, everybody. I wanted to do this for a long time, and I'm glad that it's finally come to pass. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of our current clients out there, and a very friendly hello to all of you who are prospective clients, and start to talk to you about the process of how the business works and really get into the inner details and workings of it to give you guys the best understanding that you can have in terms of best practices for internet leads, how to work them, how can you get the most from them, and how can they really serve you in your jobs. Super, super important. But as we start out, I think it's just really important to point out that I'm going to be talking from a perspective of sales. We're going to be talking about leads. However, you shouldn't, it should not be taken for granted that, you know, here at caring.com, we're very mission-centered and driven. And we really believe that the caring comes first, the .com comes second. But it's one of those things where if we're doing our job really well, we really feel like that we're impressing upon families the value of really working with providers in the senior care space. And the reason it's so important, and the reason our family advisors feel so passionately about it, is that we know that they have higher quality of life, that they are not as alone, and that they live longer lives when they're availing themselves of all of the opportunities out there in the senior care space. So preface everything I say with that, and then the other things that we're going to talk about are really techniques to drive folks into the hands of really capable and great senior care providers. So with that, what I want to do is sort of begin to talk at a high level of how this works. There can be the perception out there that, oh, they're just this website out there and, you know, sweet people just sign a form and then they just send it to me out in outer space. And really what I'd like to do on the back end is impress upon you all the work that actually goes into just producing one single screened lead that comes to you. And as we do this, one of the things that you'll find about Caring.com is we're a very open and transparent culture. Definitely ping me with questions, and I will try to answer them as they come in or in the Q&A. So high level is some people do come on the website, significant amounts, 3 million a month, right? And some of those turns into forms that get filled out. And then the other way that they find us is through Google. We have paid search campaigns, we have partners that send us leads. There's multiple streams of ways that families get in touch with Caring.com. And sometimes they decide to fill their forms out and sometimes they don't. What I can tell you is anytime somebody decides to fill out a form by putting their name and their phone number into the internet, it's generally because some sort of life event has sparked and triggered it, because they know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to get calls, right? And in several verticals, in assisted living and home care are some of those verticals, the technology is such that dialing folks are really, really important to get them on the phone, have the conversation, and see if they're truly interested or not. It's the best system that we have. Is it the greatest consumer experience all the time? I'm sure that all of us would raise our hand and say, you know what, I had an insurance guy who kept calling me, or I had, you know, somebody who was calling me about doing siding. That was one, or I actually was redoing my kitchen the other day and he kept calling. And so I hope that someone in technology figures out a better way, and I'm sure that we'll get there. But until then, this is kind of the best way that we found. And what we're finding more and more, and especially where the industry is at, is fewer folks are walking in the door first. It used to be the case that if you were in assisted living or you were running your home care franchise in your location, folks would walk in the door. But more and more, everyone wants to be an informed consumer. And so they're going online and they absolutely want to see reviews of others who've had success with the service and product. And so Caring.com ends up being, you know, a really great spot to do that. And so that ends up turning into a lot of people who fill out forms and knock on our door and say, hey, we're interested in finding out more. And so the first screen is of everything. There's a lot of stuff that we don't send to family advisors because maybe it says, like, I think it's in a high number too. It's like 25% of everything we screen out and don't even send to a family advisor because it has a bad phone number, or it says Mickey Mouse on the lead, or says something not as polite on the lead. And all of those we screen out. Now, of the ones that have valid phone numbers and leads, we take a look at those and see if there's a potential match in a geography. If there's not, then we also screen those out. And then if there is, then it goes to a family advisor and we dial immediately. The thing that we hear the most, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why later, the thing we hear the most is, wow, that was fast. And through the process, when they get on the phone, a family advisor, when they're qualifying someone for any sort of service, they're going to spend on average about 22 to 23 minutes on the phone, really trying to fine tune the need, the request, and get you guys some really thick notes and color around the situation of the family involved. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So by the time we get down, it's only 25% of everything that actually comes out as qualified that we will end up sending out. And so what does that mean? 25% of what? Well, let me give you some big numbers. Every month we'll dial 250,000 times out there to families all across the United States. We spend tens of thousands of hours to make those dials. And then we have thousands of hours worth of conversations every single week to get those leads. So I just wanted to put that out there so that you understand that it is absolutely not the case that folks fill out a form, you know, willy-nilly, and bam, it just gets shot off to you. It actually takes a long time, and that's part of the service that we really offer, is saving you guys the time of dialing through all of those leads, which you'd even be less successful at because, you know, you have to have the tools to really do the speed to lead work. So that's a little bit about the funnel. Next, what I want to talk to you about is a little bit about our qualification bar and the way that we think about leads. I've been on the receiving end of some emails from marketing directors and from franchisees who are like, hey, this lead doesn't work for me. And we can ask why. Why doesn't it work for you? Is it distance? Is it price? What is it that doesn't work? And we try to really refine that and listen to the feedback and try to get better about it. But it also should be the case that we have the expectation in general in the industry that as far as internet consumer interest is concerned, we're trying to get it close to the strike zone, but not everything is a strike for one particular community. And there are a lot of reasons for it. There might be a distance gap. So if we're talking to families that are in another state and they're not exactly sure how far the house is, there can be a distance gap. There could be a price gap where we've got the minimum pricing for a studio, but maybe the community hasn't had an open studio and they've got a 6-month, you know, waiting list or more, and we're working off that minimum pricing at the studio level. Or maybe we get the acuity level wrong. So I think one of the things at the outset, Denise had mentioned I'm a huge baseball fan. Absolutely the case. I live and die by the St. Louis Cardinals every season. I'm kind of in mourning that we're in winter because there's no baseball going on. So I come alive in spring when we get baseball. But one of the things that's never lost on me is if you hit the ball and get on base 3 out of 10 times over the course of your career, you end up going to the Hall of Fame. You're considered one of the best to ever play the game. But that means you're striking out 7 out of 10 times, right? And I think this industry is really rising to meet the challenge of the internet, because generally speaking, the way that assisted living has grown, and also home care, is that off of the referral, right? Off of the referral from a current client or someone who walks in. And that success rate is a lot higher. The industry stats that we see is, generally speaking, for assisted living, folks who are walking in the door and take a tour generally convert at the clip of about 20% of people who take a tour end up moving in. And for home care, folks, the number that I hear the most often is that the referrals that I get, they close at about 30% clip, okay? So that's never going to be the rate that an internet lead closes. However, the internet is on the rise. It's not going to meet a walk-in of somebody of that level of motivation, but I can tell you it's a lot better than any print campaign. It's a lot better than any of your direct mail campaigns. And I know because you guys may have noticed this at your homes as well. I'm getting a lot less mail. I'm not seeing all of the offers and all of the junk mail that I used to see. And the reason is that marketers have figured out that the internet is a much more efficient, effective, and cost effective way for them to spend their marketing dollars and get conversions. That's on the local level, it's on the national level. And so little by little, we're seeing, and we're killing less trees, and we're sending out less direct mail. And you're seeing, I think you're seeing less performance, certainly in radio spots. And TV is still out there, direct TV offers, and you have to really work at it to get those to work. But the internet is right up there in terms of how you can, effectively spend your marketing dollar. And so we're part of that. And so we'll be a growing mix of the ways that you get move-ins or that you get your home care start in the future. And I think right now we're starting at a really good place, and we're continuing to learn and get better. And we look forward to partnering with you and learning more about your community so that we can send you more higher quality leads for your community. But that said, even the best case scenario, not everything's going to work, and the consumer wants choice, and they may pick another community or whatnot. But it's about working together in a partnership that we can both, together really do what's right for the family and get them, some great senior care. So how does it happen? Well, this is what you're liable to get if you're a current client and you have definitely been on the receiving end of this, especially if you're not married to your CRM and you like to look at your email box. You'll notice these leads. And our family advisors spend a lot of time really working hard at these leads. And our goal is really to get really close to the budget, to get you kind of a move-in date, and to put a lot of color, talk about their hobbies, and really tee it up for you guys so that you have something to talk to them about as soon as you get on the phone with them. Super important. And we spend 1,000 hours a week just listening to calls, and family advisors are QA'd, and they get scores every single day around the quality of their calls, and also the quality of their notes are judged as well. So we've really worked hard at it over the years and continue to work on improving it and trying to get you guys the details that you need and like. So these are two types of leads. The one on the left is a tour lead. The one on the right is just a regular lead that doesn't have a tour associated with it. Some people, I've been on the receiving end of some emails where somebody says, gosh darn it, I didn't want a tour scheduled at that time. It doesn't work for me. And unfortunately, we don't have access yet. I think it's a gap that we'll eventually cross and maybe we'll have access to everybody's schedules and we can do it in a more convenient way. But at this point, we try to schedule at the convenience of within, range, but within for the convenience of the family, and set that tour. And then if it needs to be rescheduled or have someone else give the tour, then that happens at the community level. But it's super important because we see on our end that tours, these kind of leads that have tours associated with them, close 3 times as much as the ones that have no tours associated with them. So getting people to the door is one of the things that we work really hard on. Joe Public and the families, stuff comes up and they don't always show. We do send out text messages and reminders to get them to show as well. And we also make calls to remind them. But it doesn't always happen, which can be disappointing. But I would still work on these to try to get them to come, because when we had them on the phone, they agreed that they needed to go on a tour, that they should do the work of becoming an educated consumer. Because the reality is, a lot of the families we speak to are kind of going down that river in Egypt denial, right? They think that this decision is a lot farther out. We hear all the time, oh, in a couple years. But the reality is we see that 80% of the move-ins happen in the trailing 120 days that we speak with them. So 8 out of 10, and then only 20% over the trailing, 2 years. So that's really important metric to understanding that the consumer really doesn't know. And that's one of the things that we're really pleased to talk to them about, is all of the options and availability of senior care out there to try to get them to the door, because oftentimes they have the perception that it might be like a nursing home or something. And the thing that we hear most often is once they go and they end up moving in, they're like, we should have done this a long time ago. And absolutely, but they can't quite get it. And unfortunately, you're not going to get it by just doing research online. We're definitely about giving all the information that we can online, but we realize that there's only so much that you can see from corporate ad copy, from pretty pictures of seniors drinking wine at happy hour, right? And instead of the bricks and sticks, it's so much about the people who are inside the buildings, and that's you guys. And so once they meet you, they're like, you know what? I trust my loved one with this team, and I can totally see this is going to be a great fit. And then they end up moving in faster than what they thought. So I think hear what families are saying in terms of their timeline, but I think fundamentally you want to not assume anything and just go the distance and show your community and all that it has to offer. And we find that folks move in. 8 out of 10 move-ins that happen in the trailing 120 days. So really interesting. Tours really work. How response time, this is really my world. We work really hard at speed to lead. What is speed to lead? Well, in the all direct response marketing, it used to be that you were trying to drive someone to call you. So you, through direct TV, radio, or direct mail, you would send something out in an advertisement and you would want them to contact you, and then you would staff sales folks to pick up the phone when they would call. But with the advent of the internet, that's changed a little bit, but it feels a lot the same. And what we're trying to do is when someone is filling out a form, we know a few things about them. And I want you guys to really pay attention here, because this also applies to you in terms of speed to lead and how it can affect your business. So when we get a lead, we know a few things about the consumer. Number one, they are highly motivated around this topic because they're online doing research about senior living right now. The second thing we know is that they're doing that in front of their computer. The third thing we know is that that computer is next to a phone. Now, in the business, generally speaking, leads begin to expire. So they are not like, they are a lot more like fish than wine, shall we say. They tend to get worse with age. So at about 6 seconds is when the expiration starts to happen, and you're less likely to get a hold of someone, and because they've left, where they're at, and you're less likely to actually convert them. And so this chart illustrates this, right? So you see that response time impacts conversion, and it goes down. And there's a misnomer out there that a lot of people think, like, kind of like you remember when you used to fill out the cards that came in magazines? And there was no reason to have speed to lead. He filled this out a week ago, and it just got to me through USPS, right? And so I'll call him when I'll call him, or I got to him when it got to me. But the reality is now that what you want to do is get a hold of them very fast, because not only could they move away, but if you're anything like me as a consumer, I'm going to hit the back button, and I'm probably filling out multiple forms. I'm probably looking at multiple resources to try to inform myself, right? And so they might get a hold of a competitor in your market. So we do see that the first person to get a hold of a lead has the best chance, and oftentimes has the higher move-in rate if they have a better speed to lead. They're on it and dialing, within minutes, not hours. Hours, I think you're kind of late to the party for the most part. Within minutes to try to get them on the phone is super important. Number of calls. This is an interesting one. So I think, one of the things that's interesting is I think at the corporate level, there's a lot of people who send out a lot of instruction. And I feel for the marketing director, and I actually want to know a lot better how we can serve marketing directors and also franchisees as they work, because I know it's a lot. Like if you're in a community, they're like, hey, you need to do events, right? And you need to be out and about in the community trying to get referrals from folks who are in the community. And then apart from that, you also need to do speed to lead and dial your CRM, all the leads in your CRM. And I think it's a lot to juggle and be successful at. But one thing that you should definitely know is, on average, we're dialing a lot more. So to get a hold of someone, to get them on the phone, just in general, the culture has changed, and we are accepting of more dials, even though it doesn't feel like that. And we as companies dial more. So this isn't a stat from Caring.com. This is just on average. But what's interesting is it maps to the averages of Caring.com. So here's some interesting things to note for you. A lot of people will say, like, oh, these guys are matching to everybody and their brother and sending this lead out a ton of times. It's actually not the case. We match probably the least in the industry, and we have a whole data science team around that, because we're trying to figure out through data the best communities to match consumers with, so we don't have to send out as many leads. And on the senior living side, we're sending out on average like 3 leads. So one of them goes to your community and maybe 2 others. That's the average. The other thing that's an average, if you're in home care, we match to 2.5. So generally speaking, it's you get the lead and 1 or maybe 2 other people, but generally speaking, 1. So the match rates and the amount of leads that we send out, it's not a spray and pray operation for, the most part. You do get that one consumer who's adamant that they want everything in a given area, and we try to shy away from that, but it does happen occasionally. But the average of everything that we send out is really, really low for the most part. And then the other thing is dials. You might be on the other end of a consumer who says, Caring.com dialed me, 100 times. Well, I can tell you, we actually get a lot of calls from consumers who I could say the same thing, who dial us, and we always talk to them. So we don't not talk to folks. We have them come through. We're happy to talk to them again. Some folks just want to talk, and we still do that. Kind of part of our mission to help folks out, find resources, even if they're not going to turn into a local move-in for all of us. It's just part of the work that we all do in the industry. But we dial on average 3.5 times. That's it. So longer than that, you will have some that will dial a couple more times. But this stat that we get from the industry kind of maps to what we do. In 2007, we were dialing 3.6. So right now, I would say the max amount of dials for the vast majority of leads is maybe 7. And so we're kind of at that 8 area. But most people pick up the phone within 3 times. But in their mind, they're like, he called twice, he called 20 times, right? So there's kind of a reality distortion there, right? All right. So this is one of the things. So when we talk about, I've already talked about my analogy with baseball, and you have to keep swinging. And I think I like this slide. It's cheesy, and I came up with it. Denise is probably, hiding her eyes over here because it's cheesy. But the reason I like it is it demonstrates that you do have to be in contact with these folks. It's definitely not enough to pick up the phone once. I get all the leads that we send out. The phone number definitely works for folks. And we've verified that because we've had a conversation with them. But you might not get a hold of them the first time or the second time or the third time. So you have to have a process in place, and that's actually what wins the day. So especially, I'm going to talk a little bit about processes that we see work for both home care providers and also assisted living folks, okay? But it's really important that you have a process, because we see that people with processes win. That's essentially what happens. And we see that in top performers. What wins is being very consistent, not, maybe I'll get to my CRM leads this week, or maybe I won't get to them. You want to have a process in place and a way to think about it. What does that look like? So first of all, you want to be able to say that you're reaching out to the consumer by phone and leave a message, and I'm going to give you a cadence for that. But you also want to make sure that it's personalized, right? So you've learned something about the lead. I think what we train everybody to do really is to just be yourself. That works more than anything else. You don't have to be super salesy. You don't have to be even super customer servicey either. You just naturally presenting yourself is really what wins the day. And so something personal about your community that you can match with something that you found on the lead. Look forward to seeing you. And I noticed that she loves to play bridge, and we've got a bridge club. So I'd love to tell you more about it. I'll try you back. Simple as that. I mean, people love, just real honest, straightforward folks. Cadence. So if you go online and you're looking for inside sales tip and how to work the phone, and this is something that I think we as an industry can get better at. What I see, generally speaking, is everybody who's in senior care is really good at the belly to belly, at pressing the flesh, showcasing their communities. Having the conversation at the kitchen table, right? If you're in home care. And what we need to get, I think, better at is the phone, because it's the phone that drives the appointments to the kitchen table and the house. And it's also the phone that gets us the appointments to tour, right? And having a process, and this is the process that I recommend, and it's tweaked for senior living, but it's very common to some of the ones that are out there. And essentially, day one, speed to lead, try to dial as fast on a lead as you can. You will have, more oftentimes than not, more success the faster that you're able to dial as soon as you get it. And the next thing is, you're not going to leave a voicemail because you didn't get a hold of them. So maybe you're going to call them again. And that's kind of one of the things that we call like a double tap. You call and then call again. It is urgent. You want to make sure you get a hold of them. And then on the third one, hey, you know what? I reached out, didn't get a hold of you. Just want to reach out and say we're in the neighborhood and look forward to meeting you. I also sent you an email out that's got some information. Look forward to hearing about Margaret. Bam. Super professional. You're out there, you're in their email box, you're in their voicemail, and you're also in their mind, right? As someone that's been talked about with a family advisor amongst options that might be really interesting for them. Day two, give another call. When do you give a call? This is really interesting. What you'll find online is there's a lot of data around B2B sales and contact hours. I'm going to tell you that what we have found at caring.com, we do a lot of consumer dialing, is that the best contact hours, generally speaking, are between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. of your time zone. That's when we see the peak contact rates where people pick up the phone and are around. And it's different for B2B. B2B, there's kind of windows at the front end of the day and the back end of the day. So you don't leave a voicemail. Day three, you send an email. Day four, you probably add them to a drip campaign. What's a drip email campaign? Well, you should have a way to communicate with folks. There's lots of tools to do it, but you want to keep them in the back of their mind with sending them marketing emails about, the newsletter of the community. It can be just little things, but they're things that come across our desk or our virtual desk, our machines, right? And we're seeing these emails, and it does get through. Some people are going to call you back and see something interesting, or some other life event is going to happen, right? So if they haven't picked up already by this point, you can put them on your drip campaign. You've sent them a personal email. Now you're sending them an informational email. And then day five, a couple calls, they don't pick up. Okay, they've moved on. But they're forming part of your pipeline. And that pipeline is not something that's going to necessarily move tomorrow, but it's something that they know more about your community than a lot of other communities, and you're in touch with them. They know at some juncture, hey, if mom fell and she's in the hospital and she's having surgery, and oh, where is she gonna go after she rehabs? Well, there's this place that's been sending me emails, and you know what? They had a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner. I saw pictures of it. I think I saw Dolores there, mom's friend from these kind of things happen all the time. So essentially what you're doing is you're sending out ships, and some of these ships are going to come back to you if you send them out. So then you finish up, with a day 7 kind of, last attempt, and then just the drip campaign. So this is a cadence that I think will work with folks, and it's a lot more than what we're doing on average. On average, maybe we call once, and maybe it's in the same day, and that might not work for a lot of families. I mean, when they're in it, and an event has happened and it's top of mind for them and they're doing research, that's the time to talk to them. It really, really is. As soon as they move away, they start to go down, that river in Egypt, denial, like, oh, well, maybe we'll do this later. But you know what? Later can come, but what we find is it causes a lot of stress on the family, because as they kick the can on this decision, inevitably, there'll be an event that happens, and all of a sudden mom can't go back home. But guess what? The community that she wanted to go in, the one that's been sending her the drip email, and then they call and they find out there's a 6-month waiting list because they haven't gotten on a tour and they haven't, got on the waiting list. So they have to put her in a place that's not the best match for her, and she's stressed about that, doesn't like it, stressful on the family. Then they take her out of there, and then when it's her turn for the waiting list and they put her in the other community that she wants to be in, ton of stress. And it can be avoided. And the way it's avoided is by what we do in our mission, which is to educate consumers. And we really don't believe that you can be an educated consumer in the senior care space unless you sit down and talk to someone in home care, or you go to a building and take a tour with the marketing director. That's the only way to really be an informed consumer. And that's really the way that we like to give details, but we also know that there's not going to be anybody with more detail than you guys. You guys have all the details, and they need to meet you because, as I said before, it's so much of this is about the people in the communities, not just about the bricks and sticks. So last thing, let me see the next slide here. Okay, so last thing I want to say for home care folks out there, we do see a very common practice among successful franchisees who, generally speaking, operate multiple territories. And what we find is, number one, they have a dedicated person who does the speed to lead dialing, and they're always first. And it's because that person is on it. And not only that, but that because that person is the only person who does it, or one of a small group, they get really good at it. And as a result of just the repetition, they figure out how to get appointments scheduled to get to the kitchen table. Once that happens, we see that they send a very capable representative and a nurse to the kitchen table of that particular household, and they sit down, they do an assessment, and they close business. And that's how a lot of home care starts happen really successfully. So that kind of system in place is what we see is pretty darn successful. So I'd say those are kind of the best practices.
Okay, great. So just to show you a couple more things, this is what Ryan was talking about with tours and booking the tour. He shared this data. This was from a specific study we did, but this, in addition to the stat he shared about them moving in at 3.5 times faster, we also heard and do continue to hear about how nice the communities are. So you're doing a fabulous job on those tours. Keep it up. And then this is what Ryan was talking about with the characteristics of a home care agency that's really successful at converting the leads we're sending them. So thank you so much, Ryan, for all those tips that you shared. Before we go into the Q&A, I just want to cover a few things quickly, additional touches that you can do to get ready for that rush in January and make the most of working with Caring.com. And let's start with optimizing your business profile. So you want to make a great first impression, and you want to stand out in those search results so you can put to use, you can attract them to you, you can put to use all those tips that Ryan just gave you. So how do you do that? You make sure you have great photos, really, really important. And when you go to buy something, I'm sure you yourself are looking at the photos, and it's particularly important for senior living. You want to see what that community looks like inside. Pricing also is mattering to people a lot. What you offer, what Ryan called the bricks and sticks, that also, it's not the number one, but you should have it there. And also make sure you talk about what makes you special, what's unique about your community that's really going to, or your home care agency, that's really going to help you differentiate from others in the area. We talked about rates and financial qualification earlier. These are some samples on the senior living side of the kinds of rates we're looking for. And those of you who are partners, you can promote your move-in specials through your listing as well. Our family advisors use that information. We have a new feature. Some of you may not have seen this in the newsletter we sent out last week, but for independent living, assisted living, and memory care, we now have a Q&A. And when Ryan talks about those lead emails we send you, he talked about the color we're adding around the family situation. This is an opportunity. This feature, this brand new feature on the listing is an opportunity for you to add color about your community for the family. So it goes both ways. Here's a sample so you see exactly what I'm talking about. You choose, we have a list of common questions we hear. So we push that to Partner Portal users who are empowered to update their listings. You can choose which questions you want to answer. And as you see in this sample, sometimes those answers are really going to wow that senior care searcher. Like if I were looking at this community for my mom, I would be so thrilled to go take a tour and try a meal there. Their chef sounds amazing. Their food sounds amazing. I like that they're close to some things in town. It's walking distance. I mean, they're giving a lot of really great information here that helps me want to go tour. So if you have an independent living listing, assisted living, or memory care listing, and are one of the editors of your community's profile on caring.com, I highly recommend you take advantage of this ASAP before those the rush starts in January. You have a few more weeks in December. Get those Q&A up on your listing ASAP. The other thing for those of you who are like, I'm not in your network, we have a brand new feature in senior living that you can self-serve on updating your listing too. Doesn't have all the bells and whistles that our partners do, but you could at least add one photo. You can have a description of your community. You can make sure we have your community name accurate and the address is correct. And you now can also put some of your rates in there too. So you don't have to be a partner with us. We want you to, obviously, but don't use that as an excuse for not updating your listing. Get your listings. This is before January. Get your listings in tip-top shape to make a fabulous impression. Now, once you have a great listing, one of the really, really important things on it is reviews. They are proven to boost inquiries and conversions. We have been looking at this for over 5 years. We've done numerous studies. We know for a fact that prospects in senior care will click on the listings that have reviews and they will skip those without reviews. And that's true not just on caring.com, it's true in the search engines as well. In fact, some local search companies have done research and they found that 8 in 10 consumers are going to trust an online review as much or more than a word-of-mouth personal recommendation they get offline. So super important. And I mentioned we've done studies. Here's one example. This chain had over 100 listings. We looked at their listings with only a few reviews versus those with more than 15. They got 5 times more leads, 7 times more tours, and more move-ins with those listings that have 15 or more reviews. Same in home care. Now we have a new model, but back when we were annual subscription, we tested this and we saw that the volume of reviews could boost inquiries for home care as well. And what we're hearing from home care agency partners is they get their calls returned faster and the consumers reference those reviews when they talk to those home care agency owners. So still matters in home care. Every single one of you, if you have a listing on caring.com, you have a way to get reviews. Every single listing has a dedicated review submission form via the Write a Review link. Our partners also have support services to get reviews. We have a new feature in Partner Portal that you can create email campaigns. Ryan talked about drip campaigns. We empower you to do an email campaign specific to getting reviews. For home care agencies, if you're partnered with Home Care Pulse, we are integrated with them, so their calls to your customers to get feedback can be integrated as reviews on your listing. In both home care and senior living, we have, for the few folks who aren't online, we have postcard and phone submission for reviews. Any of these programs, if you have any questions about them, contact community@caring.com. That's community@caring.com for both senior living and home care. I am happy to help you with this. There's no excuse not to get reviews. All right, because they're super, super important. And once you get them, we empower you to respond to them. You can publish a response. Really matters to the senior care searchers. We've asked them. A third told us that it lets them know you really care and you're listening to what families like them said. 22% can be influenced depending on what you say. Very few are not influenced by your response. So take the time to respond to reviews, particularly negative reviews, because if you don't respond to the negative reviews, you can't qualify for the Caring Stars Award, which also helps boost inquiries and conversions. You can also, if there's a fact error in a review, get in touch with us rapidly. We don't want fact errors on our website. We don't want them in your business description, and we don't want them in reviews either. Get in touch with us. Tell us what's factually inaccurate. If it's a difference of opinion, focus on publishing a professional response. We have lots of tips on that. But if there is a fact-based error, then get in touch with us to get that review taken down. Okay, that was really fast, and I'm happy to answer any questions afterward or now, but let's take some questions for both Ryan and myself. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier. The number one question we get is, are these slides and recording available afterward? And the answer is yes. The entire presentation will be made available for you. And then those of you that are asking specific questions about your account, we will be sure to follow up with you and go into those specific details directly with you. Okay, so we have a question about the volume of calls that we make to the families after we reach them and we refer them to you. How many calls on average are they getting from the communities and agencies we're referring them to? Do you want to speak to that, Ryan?
Yeah, so again, you know, perception versus the reality. You guys might be on the receiving end of, you know, a consumer who says they got a lot of calls. The reality is the industry doesn't call that much. I'll bet if we have to say how often do they call, I'll bet if we spread out all the dials on all the leads, my guess is it's, you know, very one dial a piece. And some of those get fat fingered and they dial the wrong number, and then they send me an email and say, this number doesn't work. And then I dial it myself and it works. And I'm like, well, I think you might dial it wrong. So we don't dial enough. We don't get in contact with them enough is what I would say. Very low.
Yes. Okay, great. Now, what types of photos work the best as the image on the profile? Inside, outside pool, dining room. So you know that there's a lot of, I can take that question if you don't mind, Ryan.
Sure.
But there's a lot of debate on this. Some people say no people, some people say include people. Think about yourself in this situation. What are you looking for when you're looking at senior living communities? You know, it's going to vary. The preferences are going to vary. I suggest a mix. We definitely know, I've seen it in the inbound inquiries, that if you're only showing the outside of the building, it's dark, it's not compelling, I'm not so likely to take a tour of that community. I want to see both a mix of the outside, the inside. I want to see people. For me personally, it's really going to vary. I say you experiment with your own website and with your listing on caring.com. The beauty of our partner portal is you can change those photos every day if you wanted to run an A/B test yourself. So definitely explore, but make sure they're high quality photos. Make sure they're compelling people to come tour. These photos are not replacing the tour.
What I would say also is just, you know, if there's anything I know about the internet is that you want to put your best on.
That's right.
I mean, some of these profile pics, and then you meet someone in person, you're like, ah, like I didn't even recognize that person, you know. And I'm not saying it should be like that, but I am saying that you absolutely should put on your best dress and, you know, put the best pictures that you have out there.
Right. And the other common one that we have a little chuckle about is the photo of the toilet. Not necessarily the best image for these listings.
Yeah.
We don't recommend photos of the toilet. Yeah. We know that they're using it, but it's not exactly what you want to feature on your real estate on caring.com. Okay, here's the one. Do you have advice for gaining leads for a brand new home care agency? So what would your suggestion for them be?
So my first suggestion is we hear from a lot of folks in the home care industry, and the number one thing that I'm getting just recently, I'm going to do more kind of trainings like this, but specific to home care on how you work with leads. But the main thing is, I think a lot of people will start a franchise and they they get all excited with training. This is what we hear from corporate. They get all excited with training, and then they go home and they hang out their shingle, and then like the phone doesn't ring, and they're like, well, what do I do? And so they start dialing internet leads, but they don't have the right expectation set. So I just think that, like the stuff I talked about, you really have to dial and smile and really try to get to the kitchen table and realize that these aren't going to convert at 30%, like, you know, friends and family referrals or professional referrals. This is a different channel. And so you really have to attack. My best recommendation is kind of what we talked about, is what I would say.
Okay, great. And then do you have any final thoughts about when they call the person, what are some techniques for getting that person to take that tour?
Yeah, so that's what takes us, frankly, the longest time on the call, and where we see the real value, and it's where the rubber meets the road, is really taking someone who's just looking for information and getting them motivated enough to get in their car, drive to your building, open up the door, and take a tour, right? And a lot of that is around understanding their needs. So understanding their needs, and then just making it, you don't even have to say take a tour, just come in for a visit. Let's just visit. I think lowering the bar in terms of like the stakes, so it's less formal and not like a sales pitch, and just like, you know, an informal relationship is the way that I would start out on the phone. And if they like to chat with you over the phone, they're going to like to chat with you even more in person. You guys can sit down and have a piece of pie together. And that just sounds nice.
Yes, it does. Okay, we have one last question because we are just about out of time. And that is, for a small home care agency that doesn't have a lot of resources, how do they manage all these leads and scheduling and follow-up? Any tips for them?
You know, I need to have a better response for you, so I'm not going to make one up. I know that there are a lot of people who are trying to crack the code on software, and you should use this software to manage all of your business needs. I haven't heard which one is the best, but I know that some sort of technology is going to help you leverage your time to do all of those things. But you're definitely in it, and that is the difficulty of starting a home care agency, is you're kind of doing it all, and it takes a while before you can specialize. But I definitely recommend, you know, adopting some sort of technology.
And for those of you who are partner with us on the home care side, we recently launched My Portal for home care agencies that has some features that'll help that small business owner manage all those leads, keep track of them, and manage your lead volume as well. So that's another tool that you can take advantage to help you with that as well. Really appreciate all the questions. Those of you who we didn't get to yet, sorry about that. We are running out of time. We will follow up with you. No question will go unanswered. Do not worry. We will follow up with you. Okay, so just to close, we want to make sure you walk away with the key messages, key information we hope you took away from this session. As Ryan detailed, how fast and how well you respond to internet leads will be crucial to determining your success in converting them from prospects to customers. Try to master speed to lead. Personalize your outreach and deliver highly relevant information to that prospect. Be authentic, be persistent. Do outreach to answer her questions, and if you don't reach her immediately, keep trying. Use those outreach cadence tips that Ryan suggested. Leave brief by helpful voicemails more than once. Very important. Send a helpful email more than once. Try again on multiple days, including for home care in particular, 10 days after that initial outreach if you haven't already scheduled a tour or an in-home care assessment. And make sure you have online reviews. That's hugely important to attracting and converting internet prospects. Okay, I want to really thank you for attending our session today. We know you're busy, and we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come to this event and hear what we had to say. I hope the information was helpful to you. I would like to hear your feedback. At the end of the session, you're going to be prompted to give us feedback. Tell us how we did. Rate the session. What'd you like? What would you improve, or what would you suggest we improve for next time? Please don't be shy. I want your honest, sincere feedback. Please, I hope you will share your thoughts with us. If you don't have time to take the survey now, email community@caring.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, Ryan, for everything you shared.
Really enjoyed it.
And thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great day.